So, what is the ultimate goal of the Christian life? I mean, what's the whole point? Well, a 17th century theologian named John Owen believed he found the answer. He thought the absolute peak of human experience was packed into a single, powerful prayer from Jesus. Today, we're going to unpack that idea by digging into his classic work, The Glory of Christ.
And this is the verse at the heart of it all. It comes from Jesus' final prayer right before his crucifixion. I mean, just think about that for a second. Out of everything he could have possibly asked for his followers in that moment, his last, ultimate request was this, that they would simply see his glory.
And that, right there, raises the two huge questions we're going to tackle. First, what in the world is this glory he's talking about? And second, why was seeing it so incredibly important that it became his final wish for the people he loved most?
To get to the bottom of this, we're turning to the Puritan writer John Owen. You see, he didn't see this prayer as just some nice sentiment. For him, it was like the master key that unlocks the entire purpose of faith. This one verse explained, well, everything. So here's his central argument, his big idea. Owen says that the single greatest privilege a person can ever have is to behold the glory of Christ. And this is so important, he believed this wasn't just something we wait for in heaven. Nope, it's an active, powerful reality we can and should experience right now. Okay, so how do we actually see this glory? Owen's answer starts with a really crucial distinction. He argues there are two fundamentally different ways we can behold it. There's one way for this life and a completely different way for the next.
Right now, here on earth, Owen says we see by faith. He borrows this idea from the Apostle Paul, comparing it to looking at your reflection in an old, dim mirror. You can kind of make out the image, you know it's there, but it's indirect, it's a bit fuzzy. But in eternity, that all changes. We will see by sight, face to face, direct, unfiltered, in high definition.
And this isn't just some random comparison he's making. Owen saw a vital, unbreakable link here. Seeing by faith now is the necessary training ground for seeing by sight later. You just can't have the second step if you haven't put in the work on the first.
And he puts it about as bluntly as you can. He says if you don't practice seeing his glory by faith in this world, you actually won't be capable of seeing it by sight in the next. It's not some optional spiritual exercise. For Owen, it's the prerequisite for heaven itself. Grace, as he would say, is the necessary preparation for glory.
Okay, so we're supposed to be looking for this glory by faith. That makes sense. But what are we actually looking for? What is it? This is where Owen's argument gets really interesting and specific.
To figure this out, Owen starts with a pretty simple observation. The disciples, the guys who walked and talked with Jesus every day, were told that they saw his glory. But Jesus lived this humble, simple life. He had no royal splendor, no palace, so what glory could they have possibly seen?
Well, first, Owen tells us what this glory is not. It wasn't the glory of a king. He didn't have any earthly status. It wasn't physical beauty. In fact, Scripture says he looked pretty ordinary. And it wasn't the raw, unveiled, overwhelming power of God, because that would have been way too much for any human to handle.
So here's Owen's brilliant answer. The glory the disciples saw wasn't external at all. It was completely internal. It was the visible expression of his perfect character, his grace and truth. In other words, it had nothing to do with what he looked like and everything to do with who he was and what he came to do.
Now, defining this glory is one thing, but Owen's real passion is about the effect this has on us. Why is looking at this glory so life-altering? What is the real power of beholding it?
To explain it, he uses this really cool analogy for his time. He says that the human heart, once it's been touched by the love of Christ, becomes like the needle of a compass that's been magnetized.
And just like that compass needle is always going to be a little jittery, always moving until it points true north, Owen says the believer's soul can never find true rest or real satisfaction until it is oriented toward and fixed upon the glory of Christ.
So this constant practice of looking toward Christ's glory is not just an abstract idea. It has real, tangible benefits. According to Owen, it gets us ready for heaven. It brings us incredible, deep rest to our souls. And maybe most importantly, it fundamentally changes us as people.
And that leads to Owen's ultimate promise. This is the big payoff. By constantly beholding this glory, we are supernaturally transformed into its very likeness. To put it really simply, we become what we worship.
All right, let's bring this all together.
What John Owen is describing here isn't some passive intellectual exercise. It's an active, all-consuming discipline. It's a completely different way of seeing the world.
He argues this isn't just one duty among many for a believer. No, for him, this is the primary duty. The main business of our lives, our central focus, should be to constantly and deliberately behold the glory of Christ by faith.
And you can just feel the passion in his own words here. He's saying this focus is so all-consuming that by comparison, everything else this world offers just starts to look pale, lifeless, even ugly. It completely reorients your entire value system. So in the end, John Owen's deep dive into one single verse from the Bible leaves us with a very personal question, one that's just as relevant today as it was 350 years ago. In a world that is just overflowing with distractions, what glory truly commands your attention?